You're watching The Legal Breakdown. Glenn, we have some concerning news here as it relates to Ghislaine Maxwell. She was moved from the prison that she was formerly housed at in Florida over to a different prison in Texas. So does this signal anything as it relates to the ongoing Epstein scandal that Trump is engaged in?
You know, Brian, the most reasonable interpretation of this transfer of an inmate from one facility to another is that Trump, Bondi, Todd Blanche and company are already bestowing benefits on Ghislaine Maxwell. And here's why I say that. As a former career prosecutor, I often had occasion to arrange for an inmate to be transferred from one prison facility, confinement facility, to another. The two most typical scenarios in which I did that, one was I went into a confinement facility with my agent, my detective, and met with an inmate. What that tends to do, Brian, is put the inmate at risk. Why? Because you can't really keep it secret inside the facility. News travels fast, and the prison population will begin looking at that person as a potential threat. Oh, this person is now meeting with authorities, providing information, and they tend to get labeled a snitch, air quotes there. So sometimes we don't want to endanger somebody that we met with, somebody that we were trying to get information from, typically about bigger criminal fish. So we will arrange to have them transferred to another facility for safety reasons. Now, let me be clear. When prosecutors are in the habit or the practice of meeting with inmates, it's to get truthful information that we can corroborate and potentially use against other bigger criminal fish. Let's not pretend that's why Todd Blanche is meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. I suspect this is more of a cover-up mission because he wants to make sure that Ghislaine Maxwell doesn't say anything that could, harm dear leader Donald Trump. That would be Todd Blanche's former client and current boss. The truth of the matter is prosecutors never want to endanger an inmate, so safety is the first reason. The second reason, most common reason, is because we want to provide somebody a benefit. What do I mean by that? We will sit down with somebody who is an inmate serving a sentence. I'm not going to talk about pretrial detainees who might be considering cooperating rather than going to trial, because we're dealing with a convicted inmate here, a convicted sex trafficker and co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein. But ordinarily, we want to get truthful information, accurate information, assess it, see if we can use it. And sometimes we may not want to use that person as a witness in trial, but we may want to confer a benefit if, for example, they gave us some really important investigative leads that helps us on the path to holding other criminals accountable. One of the things we may do, Brian, federal prisoners may get convicted in, a court in their hometown. It could be Miami, LA, Detroit, Chicago, New York, anywhere. But once they are convicted, what happens? They get shipped to any federal facility, in the country that might be able to accommodate their security risk level. Everybody gets a score. What kind of a risk do they pose? And they get housed accordingly in some federal facility around the country. So what we will do to give that kind of an inmate a benefit is, maybe they were convicted in Baltimore, but they got shipped to Kansas to serve their sentence. We might arrange to provide them the benefit of transferring them from an FCI, a federal correctional institution in Kansas, to the federal confinement facility closest to their home in Baltimore. Why? So their friends and family can have regular visits without having to, travel halfway across the country. Now, the way I see it, Ghislaine Maxwell was transferred from FCI Tallahassee, Federal Correctional Institution, which importantly was co-ed, male prisoners and female prisoners. And where was she sent to? The Byron Federal Prison Women's Camp, a minimum security facility in Texas, and it's not co-ed, it's all women. And interestingly, when I was reading up on the facility, it's only partially fenced or has no fence at all in some places. So, based on what we're hearing, it sure sounds like this may be a better place, somewhere she would rather serve whatever time she may have left in the event she's pardoned by Trump. But this, to me, Brian, smacks of giving Ghislaine Maxwell a benefit. Not surprisingly, she already sat with Todd Blanche for 9 hours worth of interviews.
So even in the event, would it be fair to say that if she was promised a pardon, that of course you and I both know would not happen until 5 minutes before Trump leaves office, if he deigns to leave office in January of 2029, she's not going to get that pardon then. And so she needs something in the meantime to at least sweeten the deal, to at least feel like she'd been conferred some benefit. And so this feels like it would satisfy that immediate need for some benefit, as opposed to just waiting for a pardon that, by the way, if Trump doesn't want to give at the end of the line, there's nothing forcing him to do so.
Yeah. And you know, when you hear that the Bryan Federal Women's Camp prison it's described as a federal camp, is among the lowest security facilities that the Federal Bureau of Prisons runs, you know, it just sounds like a heck of a better place to have to serve whatever time she may have remaining. Let's hope that time runs to 2037, which is her release date. But I think, as you just alluded to, it's very hard to see how Donald Trump doesn't end up pardoning her at some point to make sure that whatever she knows remains buried.
Glenn, does the DOJ or the Bureau of Prisons have to offer any rationale for moving an inmate at all, or can they just do it and it would be shrouded in complete secrecy?
Yeah, no, there's absolutely no requirement that anything be made public about prisoner movements, assignments, or reassignments. In fact, it's typically not the kind of thing you want to trumpet. What you can do, if anybody's ever interested, they can go on BOP.gov. Bureau of Prisons website. They can put the name of any federal inmate in there, and they can find out, one, where that inmate is housed, and two, that inmate's expected release date. But, you know, inmates are moved around all the time, typically for capacity and security reasons. So, no, the Bureau of Prisons, the Department of Justice, never has any reason, nor do they have an obligation to make any of those moves public.
Okay, and finally, Glenn, let's finish off with this. Aside from the pardon, and of course aside from this move that we're seeing right now, which is her being moved from probably a less than desirable prison to a much more desirable prison, are there any other benefits that Trump or the Bureau of Prisons could confer onto Ghislaine Maxwell as a show of good faith, or just a general benefit in exchange for, you know, what she may have promised them?
Yeah, you know, now some of them may be overt and some of them may be covert. But the one big one that we often see when somebody's serving a sentence is cooperating with the government and may receive a benefit for that cooperation is a motion to reduce sentence. Now, that would have to be publicly filed unless DOJ filed it and asked the judge to seal it, at least for a period of time. But, you know, listen, if we see a court filing, even a sealed court filing in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, which, again, you can go on a public website called PACER, P-A-C-E-R, and look at exactly what has been filed in the Ghislaine Maxwell case. If we see some kind of a sealed filing pop up, which we are keeping an eye out for, that's going to be a sure sign that Ghislaine Maxwell may have some more benefits coming her way short of a presidential pardon.
Okay, well, we will, of course, stay on top of this. We continue to get updates as it relates to Epstein. So for everybody who's watching, if you want to stay on top of the Epstein scandal or any other legal news as soon as it breaks, the best way to do that is to subscribe to both of our channels. The links are right here on this screen. It costs nothing to subscribe, but it's a great way to support our work and to support independent media more broadly. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.